Hi, it is June 13th, 2022. Um, and I wanted to talk about, I had made this prediction today regarding these financial markets. Um, I want to preface this video by saying that I am not a financial advisor. I'm not even in the finance industry. I'm an accountant. My field of expertise is not financial markets. So I understand economics very well, and I understand accounting quite well, but finance I have some knowledge of, but I'm not an expert in. And so, first of all, I want to say, please, because of that, if for no other reason, don't take this as financial advice. This is more of an opinion piece. This is more of just my commentary from my perspective, which is a limited perspective of what's going on in these markets. And these markets are extremely complex. What goes on in these markets, and there's different financial markets and they interact with each other, and each one's a little differently, and the specifics of how people trade in these markets has a lot of detail, and there's a lot to learn. And even though I've listened to financial commentators for a lot of years, I'm still not an expert in finance. So with that said, so I had predicted that today's CPI number would be higher than expectations, which it was. I didn't give a specific number how high I thought it would be. I actually thought it would be a little higher than what we got, but predicting those numbers is tough because first of all, you need to understand the exact metrics of what they're measuring, how they're calculating that number to come up with a really good prediction. And again, that's like outside the scope of what I understand. So like when I'm on here and I'm talking, I do try to talk with a certain amount of conviction. I try to talk about things that I understand that make sense to me, because I don't want to be making errors, and I don't want to try to like give the impression that I understand things that I don't understand. And so in this video, I'm going to try to kind of balance some humility with what my take is, and I think some good points that I do understand about kind of what happened today and what's happening generally. So my thought had been that this high number would make the markets think that the Fed, that their trajectory, what the Fed's going to do is that the Fed's going to get more aggressive in fighting inflation, meaning that they're going to raise rates, which would be a negative for the markets, would be a negative for the bond market, would be a negative for the stock market, the crypto market. I thought that was what was going to happen and what the reaction would be. Now, so I woke up 5:30 this morning to see the CPI number come in. I was watching CNBC when it came in, and first couple guys they had on following this number were actually talking about, God, Ayn Rand actually got mentioned this morning. They were talking about capitalism, and they're talking about the Fed's printing a lot of money. They were actually saying some things that were it was pretty interesting to hear them actually talk about these concepts. But then Jim Cramer came on, and what he said was that he felt like this CPI number was backward looking, that this is the June number, and that prices were higher in June, that actually commodity prices have fallen since June, which is correct. So if commodity prices have fallen, you would think, well, that means that the end product, because these companies, they buy the commodities, they process them, they turn them into products people can use, and that would make the end product, which is what the CPI measures essentially, cheaper. So his thought is, well, the Fed's rate hike, which they've already done, has already had an impact on what he's saying is commodity prices, and then that will have a deflationary impact in the consumer prices. So, there's a few points that I want to make with relation to this. The first point is that there, and this might not be the strongest point, maybe this isn't the point I should lead with, but it's the point that's on my mind, so I'm going to lead with it. There is a difference, like, my understanding, I've never traded commodities, right? Like, but my understanding is that when the people are talking about commodity prices, what they're really talking about is they're talking about the price of futures contracts for these commodities. So say I'm going to get this much wheat delivered at the end of this month, and I'm going to trade a contract that says I'm going to be able to take that delivery at the end of this month. People trade this contract, and then at the end of the month, someone has a contract. Whoever buys the contract takes that delivery, and the farmer who grows the wheat, they sell the futures contract at the beginning because they want to lock up the price. They want to know this is how much money I'm getting for this harvest so that they can calculate their costs, and it helps them. It also can help if you're a buyer. You might buy the futures contract early and say, I know I'm going to be able to get this material for this price. So it can help both buyers and sellers. So it has a natural market function, but then there's also people who trade the market up and down, and they're just trying to basically trade the price changes. And there's people long, there's people short, and short meaning that they're betting on the price going down. And so because of that, you have... And I learned this, by the way, when we had the oil issue last year, and when oil went negative, when the futures price on the oil, the delivery and Cushing went negative, it was because these traders, everyone's like, someone's got to actually take this fucking oil. We've got a physical product coming in, someone needs to take it, and it's like, who's left holding the bag? And they had to drop the price negative. They had to pay someone to actually take that oil. Well, so that taught me that there can be a detachment between, because obviously oil's real value isn't negative, right? But it showed me that there can be a difference in the trading price of a commodity and the actual market price of that commodity. So the trading price of the futures contract versus the actual market price of that physical commodity on the open market. So that can happen. So what's happened when the Fed raised rates in June, they caused markets crash, right? Like all the markets have liquidated, things have sold off, everything's down. And as part of that liquidation, everything gets sold. Like even things that aren't the most speculative, most leveraged bets, people are losing money of those. They're having to cover short positions, they're having to cover margin calls. So they're having to liquidate other positions to cover those losses. And so you see a general liquidation. And that general liquidation spills over into the commodities trading market. So you can see traders aren't able to speculate on these contracts. But when you get to the actual delivery, all of a sudden, people are buying wheat or they're buying whatever agricultural commodity. Well, food demand in the real world is very inelastic. People have to eat. So the bids are going to come in when the actual food producers need to buy those contracts and get delivery. So you might actually see the price spike closer to the delivery time. So that's one point that I wanted to make. And I felt like that was probably, because I'm not totally versed in the length of these future contracts, when deliveries due, and I didn't really research this. This was just an idea that I had that I wanted to throw out there, and that's one consideration. The CPI consists, rents are in there. They're a part of the index. A lot of people are concerned about rising rent prices. Something I heard recently, I think it was actually Peter Schiff who said it. He said there's usually about a year lag between real estate price adjustments and rent adjustments. So I expect the real estate market is going to crash in nominal terms because all these mortgages are going to go bad because rates are rising. People aren't going to be able to cover these adjustable rate mortgages. And people aren't going to be able to take out new mortgages at higher rates. Prices are going to have to come down for people to be able to buy houses. So I expect the real estate market to crash, and I actually expect in the future that rents will have at least a downward trajectory, or at least downward pressure. Maybe they still net go up because inflation is just that high, but I think there's going to be downward pressure. So I do think there will be some relief in a sense in the rents at some point. However, I don't think many people are going to be that concerned about rents because we are going to be living in a fucking depression. And I'm talking about a real fucking depression that no one alive today has really lived through. I'm talking Great Depression type levels where people really were living in extreme poverty, in extreme desperation, looking for whatever work they could. A lot of people were homeless. A lot of people were nomadic, moving around, getting whatever work they could to try to put whatever food in their mouth and sleeping in tents, sleeping by the side of the river, wherever they could find some dirt to sleep on. Because when push comes to shove, most people can live without shelter. There are people in our society today who are homeless, and there are ways to survive, and that's an expense that can be cut. So, yeah, a lot of people are going to need to move around to find work, and yeah, I think people who have the ability to stay fixed probably aren't going to be paying super high rent in a lot of places, because I think a lot of areas are going to be very depressed. However, rent's not where it's at. Rent's not the concern. The concerns are food and the concerns are oil. The concerns are in the commodity markets. So oil's a concern because obviously there is a lot of people drive and they use gas. But again, that's something a lot of people I think can cut out if push comes to shove. People can walk, people can ride bicycles, people can hitchhike, people can carpool, people can take buses. There are other options that people can do if push comes to shove, and I do expect that push will come to shove. So it's not so much that is my concern with oil. My concern with oil is that every product that gets shipped using distillates of oil, using mostly diesel fuel in these trucks. That is a price that goes into the price of food. And food is the one thing we really can't do without. You can you can eat ramen every night, you can eat cheap, but you do need to eat. And a lot of people in this world right now don't have the ability to get a meal. We see this in Sri Lanka, and we see this in India, and we see this in Africa. And we see this in a lot of places around the world. And it's getting worse every fucking day. Every day more people around the world are faced with hunger. So this trajectory is real, and it's happening for reasons that are real. Reasons that are not easily fixable by a Fed rate hike adjustment, by a little tax code tweak, or, little this and that. We have a really sick economy with a lot of misallocated capital. And A lot of parts of this world have been living very highly off credit, including the country I live in, which is the US. And that credit's going away. So that food insecurity, that starvation, it's coming everywhere. And it will continue until we get freedom. And I'm not talking about a little bit of freedom. I'm talking about real fucking freedom. I'm talking about there is no government involved in the transaction. Period. That's the answer. That is the fucking solution. And it's terrible to experience the understanding that that's the solution, and to see these people starving around the world, and to just have your words falling on deaf ears day after day, year after fucking year. So, I talked with someone about powerlessness the other day. I said, there are things in this world that I am powerless over. I don't have the ability to put food in these people's mouths right now. I can show you what we need to do economically, but only if you're willing to fucking read my book. Only if you're willing to actually fucking listen. And people simply aren't, And this person replied, they're like, well, if you believe you're powerless, then you are. I'm like, well, I believe fucking reality. Because believe me, if I wasn't fucking powerless, I'd have ended starvation fucking years ago, man. And if you don't believe that, you must just believe I'm a cruel human being, man. And I'm not. If someone believes that all it requires is their mental belief that they have power to accomplish something, then I question, why haven't they ended starvation? All these law of attraction people, all this mind over matter, why haven't you guys used your minds to end this hell? To end this violence? To end this hunger? This disease? All these fucking problems? She's like, well, that's your opinion, dude. It's like, it's not a fucking opinion. It's a fucking real question. I'm basing this on logic. She's like, well, that's just your logic. Like, well, logic's fucking logic, and you can fucking question it just like I'm questioning yours, if you don't see it as such. I don't know, man. It is a sad fucking world, man. These financial markets. Yeah, I missed the call today. I thought this would be the end. I thought people would figure out that the Fed isn't helping inflation. But they don't believe that. They choose to believe that 9% inflation is a manageable problem, that it's nothing to be concerned about, that it's transitory and temporary, and that it'll go away as easily as it came, because the Fed raised rates 0.75%. So, unfortunately, it seems that the lessons have still not been learned. And it seems that we're going to have to wait for some other event to wake people up. Could be next month's inflation number. Could be, the violent overthrow of some more governments. Could be starvation hitting home, empty food shelves. I don't know what it's going to take, man. It's like watching the alcoholic, right? To any reasonable observer, they're long fucking past the point where they should have stopped fucking drinking. But it's a fucking compulsion, man. It's a craving. It's something that they have no power over. Just like me, man. You know, there's a whole 12-step program for friends of alcoholics and family members of alcoholics called Al-Anon. I've never been to a meeting, but I can see how painful it is to understand something and yet be unable to get other people to understand it. And shit, maybe I should go to a meeting. I'll just substitute alcoholic for government supporter in my mind, and maybe I can get some support that way. So I'm just trying to think if I got anything else to give you guys here. Yeah, you can. I mean, we're just gonna have to wait it out, man. You know, in a sense, I'm fortunate that, like, I'm gonna be able to survive increased prices for probably longer than most people. I'm just a fortunate guy in that regard. So, like, I'm not personally having to suffer food insecurity right now. But well, I guess there is no but. I guess that's good news. It's good news because it allows me to just kind of detach myself and just focus on my own life and what's in front of me and accept the powerlessness that I have over all of these people, man. So, with that, I'll try to enjoy the rest of my night.